My name is Sarah from Tassie, and we talk all things health and well-being and positivity and personal development and goodness for busy mums. So here on our little corner of YouTube, we have the privilege of talking to someone different every week-ish about all of those subjects. And this week I'm very, very pleased to say that I spoke to the lovely Dr. Anne. Dr. Anne is a psychologist, and she works a lot with children and families, and she looks a lot at communication and emotional health and things like that in the kind of family dynamics. So obviously really super appropriate for anything motherhood. We had a really gorgeous chat about honestly about kind of breathing, letting go, taking a step back, taking it easy, mostly for the benefit of the child, but also that plays into all the benefits for mum as well. I won't go on about it too much because you can watch the chat. And then of course at the end she talks to a little task or a challenge or a little thing to think about at the end, which I go away and have a little try of as well, and it's a really lovely one. It's the only thing to do that's actually not a thing to do. You'll see what I mean. Anyway, here's Anne and I having a little chat. Do enjoy. So thanks so much for joining me. It's absolutely lovely to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how we came to be and how we came to meet and how our paths might cross?
So I am a clinical psychologist, which is someone who differentiates it from being an academic psychologist. So I'm a psychologist that works with people. So I work with families and adults and children. And I'm on Instagram, which is where we met.
Yeah.
Yes, because I've recently written a book on children's emotional intelligence. So I'm busily posting things on Instagram and putting videos there. And you were there.
Yes.
And you have the most lovely, lively feed, don't you? And stories. I really enjoy your stories.
Oh, thanks. Oh, that's so nice. You know what? Because I've kind of just started this project. I've not even really kind of properly got anything off the ground yet. And it's just been the most lovely thing on a personal level, because for all its kind of negative aspects, it's generally, if you use it in the right way, a lovely way to kind of meet people, isn't it? And kind of make these connections. It's just been lovely so far. So yeah, it's nice. And
marvelous.
We kind of connected, didn't we? And I think there are kind of some quite interesting crossovers in things that we do and kind of areas that we work in, like quite different, but at the same time some interesting crossovers. So kind of my main focus and kind of my mission is kind of focus on mums and well-being, and obviously a big part of that is the wider picture of kind of family life and the relationship that you have with your children and stuff, which is kind of more the area that you're focusing in, isn't it? Can you talk to that a little bit and kind of how how those relationships and things might kind of help mum's well-being as well?
Well, so one of my big love about my job is the relationships I get to have with people. And the relationship, all the research. So sometimes people go to therapy for CBT or EMDR or for psychodynamic approach. There's all these different sort of categories of therapy, but the research behind all of those different therapy modalities is that the relationship you have with the person is the thing that makes the difference.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
I for years, it's been the quality of the relationship I have with the people I see. And then as a mother, it's become the quality of my relationships with my children that I really enjoy, and that I find transforms everything. Everything starts with the relationship. So any difficulties they're having, it's my relationship with my children that brings us through. that creates the most joy, the most pain for me, that drives me bananas, that relaxes me, gives me meaning. Everything's in the relationship. And I suppose one of the things that I've liked when I've looked at your sort of stories is that sort of gentle harmony. I'm sure it's not sometimes, but there's a nice harmony between you and your daughter. She potters around and you do your yoga or dance or sort of carve the pumpkin or whatever. And those things touch me immensely, and that's what I want to help people with. So lots of things can come and burden our relationship with our children. I mean, it's this, particularly I think about mothers, it's the mother load, isn't it? All the things we carry, all the things we are trying to make sure are safe and are achieved and done. And there is this word parenting, which can become that sense of I met a guy a few years ago and he said to me, with his sons, he said, I'm just trying to make sure they don't kill themselves, Anne. I remember him standing in the park, sweating. It was just like, as long as they don't die today, I will have
boiled it down to that like mission statement.
I mean, to be fair, he had 4 boys and they were climbing everywhere and pulling everything. And I was like, yeah, good on you. You know, you've kept going now that, you know, they look like they've, achieved something together. But there is something about the way in which everything has become a sort of technology these days. Parenting has become a technology. It's this idea that we have to make sure our child is walking, talking, potty trained. They do their teeth. They are social. They're sharing with their friends. They are able to hold their pencil properly. It becomes quite a lot. There's quite an agenda around parenting. And I want to sort of take it back and make it much more simple and meaningful, and take away that level of sort of burden really around it.
Yeah,
so
that's
the thing that drives me.
Yeah, it's so true. And I suppose a lot of that stuff from a kind of structural perspective, I'm thinking about the kind of midwifery checkups you get and all that kind of stuff, I suppose, and school curriculums. I suppose a lot of those structures have been put in place originally just to kind of, I don't know, monitor a general pattern and give people something to help them. But yes, sometimes it can get a bit too bureaucratic, can't it? And it's like it's just another to-do list, isn't it? And then you get a very strong kind of competitive element coming in as well that that's impossible to avoid when there's milestones and settings like that. How can you not compare, even if it's not to other people, if it's just to yourself,
because there's that underlying fear that you're going to get it wrong or that they won't achieve it. So I remember the most haunting things I had when mine were really small, particularly my first, was that sense of anyone putting any sort of fear messages out. If they're not achieving this by this stage, you need to, that there are concerns. Or if you, just a sort of general thing when they're small, if you feed them to sleep, they'll never sleep on their own. Or if you, there's a lot. And it probably wasn't said very much at all, but there was something about my brain which would scan and find that thing which was a bit of a threat, and that was the way I operated, because I was so tired and because it was all so new and because you're so attached to this little person that I think you're watching, aren't you? It's like everyone else is, all their children are walking and mine, you're just sitting on his bottom for hours. What's wrong? I think it's so natural, isn't it? And the way we update what they should be doing is by watching the other child. So there's always that, oh no, Bill's now standing, and so it's so natural, isn't it? It's so natural, and it's the way we try to understand if our child's okay, or sort of motivate ourselves to help them a bit more. But I don't want it to sort of turn that balance where it becomes just more exhaustion. And it's always that risk, isn't there? And I come in and they say, be a relationship with your child, and everyone goes, oh God, it's another thing to worry about now. It's not our relationship. But I want it to be the thing that actually just allows us to step back from it all and find that ease and comfort. But
yes, that's so nice. And I can start to see how then that becomes a cycle, going back to what you said before, because then that eases the load, doesn't it, on mum? It kind of, takes some of that kind of stress and anxiety away about achieving and must do this and must do that. And then that presumably feeds back into the child as well. If mum's a little bit more relaxed and chilled and happier within herself, then child's going to pick up on that as well. And so presumably
it is magic, Sarah. It's magic. It's that when children are really sensitive to our moods, they're built to pick up on our stress, because they need to learn about things which should possibly cause them stress. So they really pick up on the stress, but they pick up on our ease as well. So it's a two-way thing. And sometimes if they pick up on our stress, the natural human response is to avoid something. So I remember my daughter walking, and I was 2.5 before I moved, before I walked. And so it was such a family story of so much laughter. There's so many stories about Anne never moved, Anne never moved, Anne never moved. That my poor daughter, I was sort of watching thinking, gosh, I hope she's going to be okay.
Yeah, because you had that kind of subconscious thing from your child.
This would be a very bad thing, it all. And I remember when she walked, she just toddled along the grass one day, and I got so excited, she stopped walking for another 2 months. I was like, oh, you're walking. I remember I just wouldn't walk. So it was a good, I think, 6 weeks, 8 weeks before she, would dare to do it, because she'd picked up on this is a bit too exciting. There's something about this.
There's something going on here. Yeah.
Something going on here. So it is one of those things that the more easy we are, the more relaxed. I saw someone else on Instagram, and she was cooking something, and her daughter reached over and tried something that was new for her. And she said to the camera over her daughter, she says, I'm not going to say anything about that. I'm not going to make any comment about it whatsoever. She can help herself or she cannot. It's just, there's no great amount of attention on it. There's not a lot of praise. There's not a lot of excitement. It's just all sort of folded in. It's there. And it's that sometimes that creating that bit of space around something, that quieter, that more reflective, more easy, slower pace, allows that child to sort of begin to explore and get curious and connect with things. So like you say, it's paradoxically really helps development.
That's interesting from that positive end as well, because I think that's probably something people consider less. I remember my mum saying, and I think it's because I've only got one child as well, my tendency is, and she's in a childcare full time, so my tendency is kind of when she's here, because I must be doing stuff with her all the time and entertaining her. And I remember my mum saying, like, if she's happy just playing by herself or just reading a book, don't feel like you have to get nuzzled in on, she can just sit and read by herself. It's good for children to learn to kind of do things on their own as well. So sometimes I have to and I do have to force myself to think, I'm going to try and just leave her to it, because she's playing Lego or whatever. So it's quite interesting, isn't it? Sometimes we can be over
yes,
do the good stuff.
yes, really we can. And I think I think about that sort of creeping up and watching them. And there's that time, isn't there, where sometimes they go through a phase where they want to be with you all the time, and then actually they settle and they start doing things by themselves, and it's quite amazing. And you can't quite believe they're leaving you just to do the cooking. Around. I remember kind of pushing my head around the side of the furniture to look, go, oh, really? Oh. I think that's right. I think we can get this sense of even the positive. It's very important to be positive, to sort of cheerlead, to guide them through, and that brings that old burden back into the relationship. I've got to encourage them, I've got to connect with them, but it's that more stepping back that I'm quite keen on. How we create that space to be with them, but have that more of an equal energy or an equal to and fro between us, where it's not an adult stepping over and steering the child through something, that we're more connecting and listening and being curious about what they're doing. So that's
it's so fascinating. And I'm wondering, I'm curious, like how do you kind of approach doing some of that stuff, because I mean, it sounds amazing kind of on this kind of theoretical level. I can't quite imagine how you then guide some of the people you work with to do that, and what are some of the struggles that people come up against whilst they're doing that as well? I'm sure that's quite interesting. And
yes, so to be honest, when I see people in my work, I'm not a play therapist, something like that. So it is trying to trying to really, if I was working with an adult or with I don't work with children on their own, I'll work with the adult, or sometimes I bring the child into the session to work, because it's supporting that relationship that's my main focus. But we're trying to set up that dynamic where we really closely listen or respond to what that child does. And I do that same with adults. I see it's trying to find out what their concerns are, what their thoughts on this, and to open that up. And sometimes they'll say, what do you think? And then I will give them a thought on it. Quite often they'll go, that won't work. So it's fine. But I like to be transparent and go, here it is. Yeah. Now, the difficulties people have with that is that we have a big sort of narrative in our head about potential worries. Like, I'll give you one example. So if we have a child who's not being very sociable, who the school is saying, your child is not being very sociable, they're not interacting with other people, they're a bit withdrawn. Sometimes a message like that can creep into a parent's mind, and we start to have an agenda for our child. So we worry, we want them to talk more. So it might be coming home from school and we're saying, what happened today? What did you do today? What did you have for lunch? What did you have? And very typically children don't answer questions on the way home. They're not very interested in having conversation about what they had for lunch, who they played with.
Off time, yeah.
Absolutely not. That's not their time for engage, which just furnishes this idea that there's something wrong, as opposed to us seeing it as just that's quite normal. But it can create a bit of an agenda in our relationship. So if we were then to be with our child, there would be that sometimes overcoaching about things. So we might be saying, okay, you need to say thank you, or you don't stare at the other child, or why don't you want to play with Peter? Let's get Peter around for play date. So sometimes we have in the back of our mind a worry or an anxiety about our child, and that can take center stage, and it becomes more prominent in the relationship.
And I guess if it's there, you're then looking for it. You're probably picking up on stuff that you're probably isn't a massive deal, but because you're thinking about it, you're kind of looking for those things.
It's so right. We have a confirmation bias in our brain, so we will find the things we look for, and things will feed it, especially if we're worried and we're fearful about something.
Yeah,
we'll find lots of examples of that to worry about, and that fear then can just be picked up, and our child is a bit like, don't want to tell you about the day, don't want to say thank you, don't want to see Peter. They begin to brace up and pull away from this bad thing that's happened. So one of the things I often talk to parents is about the sort of narratives they have around something, the assumptions they're making, the things that are preoccupying them, and that can get in the way. Other things that can get in the way is just the sheer damn busyness of bloody modern life. I mean, the manic, hectic busyness is a real burden. And I was thinking, if you're working and they come back and they're tired, and you've got to get their dinner done, and you've got to get all the washing done, and you've got to get their stuff, the sort of fancy dress stuff ready for tomorrow, and their bath. It is just that pace, isn't it, of trying to get everything sorted in the limited time we have. And then weekends are filled, aren't they, with parties and visits and
exactly.
So I think one of that can really get in people's way. It's just tiring, it's exhausting.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of maybe not, and if not, that's okay, but any kind of top level tips or quick fire tips that people, if they're kind of interested in this, but maybe they're not at a place to kind of fully delve into it, so kind of one-on-one work, maybe just things for people to think about or to consider, as we go into the kind of, to be honest, what is the craziest period of the year, isn't it, for a lot of people?
Yeah, crazy.
And Christmas, there's like a whole nother layer of pressure. Is there anything that you would advise people, parents, mums, to kind of maybe start thinking about in a different way, or anything like that?
Absolutely is. And this is not a sort of therapy thing, this is just an everyday relationship. One of the things I love with mine, and they're 6, 8 and 10 now, is getting down on the floor with them, really down at a low level. And I will often start really lazily, not observing, not doing anything, not interacting, just lying near them. And I might lie and just watch what they're doing. So so I will find myself lounging around. So
try not to nod off, is it?
Trying really not to nod off.
Yeah.
So just being near them sometimes, down at their level, with no agenda on my mind. No agenda. It's just the sheer niceness sometimes of being near them as they do something. So sometimes it's lying, I go and I lie in the bed with them in the morning before they've woken up, and I'll lie there and I will just, I don't know, boys have got a bunk bed, and I'll go and I'll stick my legs up and push the mattress to the top one off.
Yeah.
I'll lie down, I'll put my head under the teddy bear. Sometimes they know you're not in that doing, telling mode of organising mode. They just know, because you've gone down to their level, you've sat. I lie on the sofa with my daughter while she reads, and I will lie back and just look out the window and put my legs on her lap, and she'll put her hand over and she'll rub my legs, and then after a while she'll look over and she'll go, "It's a really funny bit in this book, mummy." And so there's that almost waiting for their invitation to join in, but putting yourself physically near them in a way that's quite relaxing. And I enjoy that so much. I do that for regular small periods of time, and this does not have to be a thing. It doesn't have to be any longer than 3 minutes. It could be 15 minutes, it could be 1 minute, it just doesn't matter. So it's not to make it into a thing really, although it's hard, hard, but just to try and almost ease down their level and see where they're at.
I love that it's so open as well. I love that you've approached that as in, like, not with an agenda, like, don't do anything specific, just be.
Just be. I really like the physical kind of physically. I love being slightly cheeky with them, if I'm honest, and it is putting my legs on their lap, or it is leaning back or fiddling with their things next to them. So it's almost doing something with them next to them, but not doing anything sort of interactional at that point. Then you get different kids. Some kids just don't like their space invaded. Some kids just don't like their toys. Some children get very triggered by any sense of demand made of them. And if your child is a little bit more sensitive, you can just be a bit more gentle and really just give them a bit more space, but just lie near them and do something with your own bits and gently. Now, when the conversation comes, it's just taking their lead as much as you possibly can. So sometimes there is that temptation to do something funny, or to tickle them, or to lift them up, or to I don't be very playful. I love being playful, but you can take it just a little bit down. So if I'm going to pretend to be a dog on my hands and knees, I might just nudge them with my nose rather than doing anything too full blown. Tickles tend to be a bit overwhelming for kids and are quite a different category, so it wouldn't be anything too exciting. It's just that sort of being present, being around, responding to what they might say. Sometimes, sorry, Sarah, so many things to say in this short time. Sometimes you get children who are in a bit of a stage where they say, "Mummy, I want a drink," or "Why are you down here?" Or there can be certain stages where children get very used to associating you with a need, or feeling a bit deprived of you, so they can start asking things. And you can say, "Oh, a drink, a delicious drink, that would be so nice. What are we going to do about that?" And try and just give it a bit of space, into that. Or why, I'll say, why, and use it as just a bit of a musing starting. So my 8-year-old used to love why, and he went through so many whys, which I remember at certain points thinking I should answer, and other points realizing he just wanted to chat. So he'd say, "Mummy, why is the postman there this morning?" And I'd say, "Oh, why? Funny man, big hat, hasn't he got big hat?"
Also, I love that. Yeah, because I mean, we're very much in a why stage at the moment, and it's true. Sometimes you think, I know you know the answer to that. I know you're not really asking me why. Yeah. But I love that, because and it's the same with the drink. You're kind of programmed, or habitually it's like, okay, well, that means I go get a drink. So I love that concept of just, not right now, let's just have a little think about that. I think that's so nice.
I do say, "Mum is just resting myself for a little bit. What type of drink would you like? Would you like a super strawberry smoothie?" There's no super strawberry smoothie. Anyway, I don't want to tease them, and obviously if they're desperate for a drink, I won't deprive them of a drink. But it's sometimes it gets to be, you don't have a moment, do you, before there's a new request made. I did ask my son when he was little, I say, why are you saying why? And he'd say, because that's the way it goes, mummy. So,
that's how it is.
That's how it goes. So I'd sometimes say that. He'd say, why is the sky blue? And I go, because that's the way it goes. So it got to be one of those points where it doesn't feel so instructive, or you're explaining to him that the light rays that come through form a blue, the spectrum, or some answers that you can sometimes find yourself deliriously giving.
Yeah, no, that's so funny. That's so interesting. I love that. Just kind of, using it as a prompt to kind of open maybe a bit more of a creative conversation. And I suppose it's if it's something you're not used to doing, if that feels a bit weird or a bit alien, it's kind of a habit, isn't it, for me? And maybe just trying a little bit and kind of building it up and just kind of getting
easing into it a little bit. So sometimes you might just say, oh, that's a very complicated why, and my little brain can't. So you can sometimes, if you don't want to make up complete nonsense, but children also love instructing you as well. So mine would love to go, oh mummy, that's not why, that's not why. And I'd say, why? What? And it would begin to create that little bit of a time where they could move to being the instructive person. Okay, listen, mummy, postman has to wear that hat, or and you suddenly realise this little person's got quite a good idea.
So nice. And I can see kind of bringing it full circle back round to kind of my mum's well-being stuff. I can see how doing that and kind of taking that approach as well would also give mum just a chance to think, wow, there's not this mad rush. I don't have to do this and answer this and know everything. It kind of gives you that kind of mental, physical kind of room to breathe as well, doesn't it?
I find it really recuperative. I find it so recuperative to take those times down. And it's quite hard to go from being full on busy with kids and a job to then relaxing and doing sometimes some of the sort of more, people will say, oh, go and have a bath, or go and I sometimes find taking those little moments of just really sort of letting go of an agenda or a need to get something done gives me that. It lowers our family tempo. It brings everything down. It quietens everything down. I feel a bit more revived. I don't associate the children with just more demands all the time. So, there's that stage when they're little and they follow in the loo and they follow you like that. And you get this feeling, don't you, of like, oh, I can't actually just follow a line of my own thinking for 2 seconds without another demand being made. And it does help reset the relationship a bit and give it back that. The other thing I wanted to say about it is that sometimes when we're talking in therapy, we talk about talking sort of parent to parent, parent to child, child to child, different levels of conversation. And children don't get very much opportunity to be on a level with us around conversations. And it's so good for their sort of social, I'm talking about not worrying about the social skills.
Yeah.
For them to have that opportunity to talk to you collaboratively and directly and at a level. It's so good for their confidence, their cognitive abilities, their understanding of the to and fro in relationships. And they get such precious little of that sometimes at school or at nursery.
Yes, when it's all quite
adult to child, isn't it?
Teaching you take on this information, you ask me for help, I'll give you help. Yeah, that's really interesting. So can I assume then, Anne, that this is my kind of task or challenge is around this idea of what you'd like me to go and have?
You can. That would, I'd love that.
Yeah.
So it's something like floor time, or getting into the bath with her, or something. It might be hard to film that, mightn't it? So floor time.
No one needs to see that. Yeah.
No one needs to see that.
a video diary on how it
We
went.
used to have an enormous old bath in our old house, which I used to love. It was, you could fit three adults in comfortably because it was so enormous.
Yeah.
And I used to get in that bath. I really miss it. That would have been perfect because you could have just put your head out over the top. But no, for every day, Sarah, it's that getting down and just seeing whether a conversation happens or not, or how the interaction goes, and sort of following her lead. So if she gives you any indication that she doesn't want you to touch something or doesn't want you near, just that's absolutely fine. You just go back and you sort of rest yourself and look at the ceiling. It's really allowing her to sort of set the agenda if there is one. If she wants to sort of do all your hair and put something on you, that's absolutely fine. It's taking her lead. It's allowing her to be the boss for a little while.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. I shall really enjoy trying to kind of capture some of those moments. That would be so nice. And yes, and actually you've reminded me, we do very occasionally take a bath together, and I haven't done it for a little while, and I think it's probably because last time we did, she said, and she kind of scudded herself right into the back of the bath, and she said, "Oh mummy, your legs are very spiky."
Or your boobs are very long. That makes us sound like, thanks to you.
We've done that for a while, but no, I get the sentiment, and I shall really look forward to doing that. Thank you so much. It's been just so fascinating, and I say it every time, but it's so true. I feel like I could just talk to you forever. It's just such an important subject.
How much of a pleasure is this, Sarah, just to be able to talk to people about things I really love and the things you love, and to connect on that. And it's
great, and it's so important. And just before we go, can you tell people where they might be able to come and find out more about you or about your imminent book launch, which is very exciting?
Yes, so I'm on Instagram, and my handle is Dr. with a Dr.Anne, A-N-N-E, Lane, L-A-N-E. So I'm Dr. Anne Lane. I'm on Instagram. The book comes out in February, but it's available for pre-order, and it's Nurture Your Child's Emotional Intelligence. So it's got loads of great tips and advice, and is based on I've worked as a psychologist for 20 years. All the families I've worked with, all the people, my poor family get a lot of mention on it. I wanted to make it very practical, very linked in with people's lived experience, with lots of sort of ideas and tips. So that's available for pre-order, but it comes out in February. Amazing. But thank you.
Oh, amazing! Congratulations. It's I've not written a book, but I've heard from people that have, that it's a huge task and it's really hard work. So
it felt like delivering another baby. It did feel really hard to try and be coherent. I absolutely love writing it, but it's all the processes around that and getting it sorted and make sure it's coherent. But I had a great editor, so fingers crossed she's pulled it all together. Well, she has. I've seen the job.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to reading it. Yeah, it'll be amazing.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Do keep in touch.
Absolutely. I will. I've been watching your stories daily.
Likewise. Yeah, have a great rest of your week then, Anne.
Bye, Sarah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Lovely was that chat with Dr. Anne. I loved her points about just taking a step back and being less pressurized and less on it, and just being and just giving it space. So here is a little montage of me in various states of kind of messy clothing and messy hair and messy house, just being with my daughter, and it was so nice. And we do a lot of this kind of play and rolling around on the floor and stuff anyway, but I really tried to just take a step back. Case in point here, we're not chatting, I'm not commentating, I'm really trying to just take a step back and let it be. Look how bored we look. But it was really lovely, and here's me doing a kind of vague attempt at a bit of Pilates in the morning. My daughter's happily making a little bracelet out of beads. She asked for some help here, and I love the focus. I love the reframing of just being in a space together in close proximity. It doesn't have to be a focused activity or learning. We're just playing. She's eating some chocolate covered apple. We're playing with some stickers. So do keep the conversation going. Leave us a comment, get in touch with Dr. Anne, get in touch with myself. Let us know if you enjoyed this episode. If you try some of the ways that Anne explained, I'd love to know how you get on. Subscribe, give us a like, and do get in touch. And I'll see you next week. Thank you so much.